The thunder rolled across the Montana sky like a warning as Clara Reynolds clutched her worn leather satchel closer to her chest, the faded photograph of her late father peeking out from its edges. The year was 1878, and the sprawling frontier town of Silverwater Creek was supposed to be her sanctuary, not the place where everything would fall apart. Her chestnut hair hung in loose waves down her back as she stepped off the stagecoach, the promise of her uncle's ranch and a fresh start evaporating when the driver handed her a telegram Uncle Richard had died 3 weeks ago. Now she stood alone, without a penny to her name, in a town where she knew no one. Clara had spent her last dollars on the stagecoach fare, believing she'd find security with her only remaining family. Now the darkening sky matched her spirits as rain began to fall, quickly turning the main street into mud. She sought shelter under the awning of the general store, wondering what to do next. "You look lost, miss," came a gentle voice behind her. Clara turned to see an elderly shopkeeper peering at her from the doorway. "I am, sir. My uncle passed before I arrived, and I'm afraid I have nowhere to go." The old man's face softened with sympathy. "Richard Reynolds was your uncle. He was a good man. Come inside before you catch your death." Inside the warm store, Clara explained her situation while the shopkeeper, Mr. Patterson, offered her hot coffee. His kindness was the first she'd experienced in weeks. "I can offer you work here at the store," he said finally. "It's not much, but there's a small room upstairs where you could stay." Clara's relief was palpable. "I'd be most grateful, sir." That night, Clara settled into her tiny room above the store, gazing out at the rain-slicked streets of Silverwater Creek. The town was larger than she'd expected, with several saloons, a bank, a hotel, and even a small theater. In the distance, she could see the silhouettes of ranch houses scattered across the rolling plains. Her uncle's ranch was out there somewhere, now in the hands of strangers. She'd barely had time to learn her way around the store the next day when 3 men entered, their spurs jangling against the wooden floor. They carried themselves with an air of entitlement that made Clara uneasy. "Well, what have we here?" said the tallest one, eyeing Clara as she arranged fabric bolts. His dusty black coat and silver pocket watch screamed money, but his eyes were cold as he assessed her. "Patterson, you've been holding out on us. Didn't tell us you hired such a pretty little thing." "Mr. Blackston," Patterson nodded curtly. "Miss Reynolds is my new assistant. She's not accustomed to our town yet, so please keep your manners about you." Clara kept her head down, continuing her work, but she could feel the man's gaze lingering. Later, Patterson warned her about Edwin Blackston and his brothers. "They own half the valley now, including your uncle's place," he explained. "Been pushing smaller ranchers out for years. Your uncle was one of the few who stood against them. Strange timing, his passing." The implication hung heavy in the air between them. "You think they had something to do with his death?" Clara whispered. Patterson shrugged. "Can't prove anything. Sheriff's in their pocket too. Just be careful around them, Miss Reynolds." Over the next few weeks, Clara settled into life in Silverwater Creek. She proved herself a quick learner and hard worker at the store, and Patterson treated her with grandfatherly affection. But she couldn't shake the feeling that Edwin Blackston was watching her. He appeared at the store nearly every day, buying things he didn't need, making comments that veered between flattery and threat. "Your uncle's land is flourishing under proper management," he told her one afternoon, leaning against the counter. "Pretty thing like you shouldn't worry about ranching anyway, better suited to more domestic pursuits." Clara's polite smile never reached her eyes. "My father taught me plenty about ranching, Mr. Blackston. I find it quite fascinating." The mention of her father seemed to catch his interest. "Reynolds? Any relation to James Reynolds from Kansas City?" Clara stiffened. "He was my father." Blackston's smile turned predatory. "Well now, that is interesting. Your father and I had some unfinished business before his unfortunate passing." That night, Clara searched through her father's papers, trying to understand what connection he might have had to Blackston. Among the documents was a deed to land in Montana Territory, not her uncle's ranch, but another property near Silverwater Creek. A property her father had purchased years ago before his death. Land that valuable, someone's bound to come looking eventually, Patterson said when she showed him. Especially if it's near the creek, water rights are worth killing for out here. You think Blackston knew about this all along? That he's been waiting for me to appear, Patterson nodded grimly. And now he's got his sights set on you one way or another. The next day, Clara sent inquiries to the land office in Helena. If she owned property here, she intended to claim it properly. Perhaps she could build something of her own, honor both her father and uncle's memory. What Clara didn't know was that Blackston had men watching the mail. 3 days later, he confronted her as she walked back from the post office. "I'd like to make you an offer," he said, stepping out from between two buildings. $500 for any claim you might have to your father's land, generous considering the circumstances. Clara's heart raced, but she kept her voice steady. "And what circumstances would those be, Mr. Blackston? A woman alone can't develop land. You'll need a husband or you'll lose it anyway. $500 could set you up nicely elsewhere. Or..." His eyes traveled over her form. "There are other arrangements we could make." "I'm not interested in any arrangement with you," Clara said firmly, attempting to step around him. His hand shot out, gripping her arm. "You misunderstand, Miss Reynolds. This isn't merely an offer. It's the only option you have." A shadow fell across them both. "Seems to me the lady made herself clear," came a deep voice, its tone casual but carrying an unmistakable edge. Clara turned to see a tall man she'd never noticed before. He wore dusty trail clothes, a weathered leather vest, and a hat pulled low over his eyes. The gun holstered at his side looked well used, and he carried himself with the easy confidence of someone who knew how to use it. "This doesn't concern you, stranger," Blackston said, though his grip on Clara's arm loosened. "When a man puts his hands on a lady against her wishes, it concerns any decent fellow within eyeshot," the stranger replied. "I suggest you remember your manners." Blackston sized up the newcomer, evidently not liking what he saw. "We'll continue this conversation later, Miss Reynolds," he said, tipping his hat before stalking away. Clara rubbed her arm, which was already bruising. "Thank you, sir. I'm Clara Reynolds." The man touched the brim of his hat. "Vincent Archer, new in town." "What brings you to Silverwater Creek, Mr. Archer?" His eyes, a striking blue against his sun-bronzed face, revealed nothing. "Just passing through, looking for work." Clara studied him. He didn't look like a drifter, despite his trail-worn appearance. There was something purposeful about him, a steady watchfulness that spoke of a man with objectives. "Patterson might need help with deliveries at the general store," she offered. "I work there myself." Vincent nodded. "I'll keep that in mind." As Clara watched him walk away, she couldn't help wondering about this mysterious newcomer who'd appeared at exactly the right moment. She had no way of knowing that Vincent Archer had come to Silverwater Creek with very specific intentions, and that her path crossing with his was no accident at all. The following day, Clara was surprised when Vincent appeared at the store, taking Patterson up on the offer of delivery work. The elderly shopkeeper seemed relieved to have a strong back to help with the heavy lifting, and soon Vincent was loading a wagon with supplies bound for outlying ranches. "Mind if Miss Reynolds accompanies me?" Vincent asked. "Could use the help, and it might do her good to see more of the territory." Patterson hesitated, then nodded. "Just be back before dark. Blackston and his boys tend to get rowdy at the saloons come evening." The day was clear and bright as they set out, the vast Montana sky stretching endlessly above them. Clara found herself stealing glances at Vincent as he handled the team with practiced ease. His profile was strong, with a straight nose and firm jaw softened by a day's growth of beard. "You've handled horses before," she observed. A hint of a smile crossed his face. "All my life. My father raised horses in Texas. And now you're just passing through Montana." There was gentle skepticism in her voice. Vincent glanced at her, something like appreciation in his eyes. "Smart as well as beautiful. You're right to question a stranger's story, Miss Reynolds. So what's the truth then? He was quiet for a moment. Let's just say I'm looking for something, or someone, and I have my reasons for being in Silverwater Creek. Clara didn't press further, but as they made deliveries to various ranches throughout the day, she observed how Vincent took note of boundaries, creek positions, and the lay of the land. He wasn't just a drifter, he was surveying the territory with purpose. On their return journey, Vincent steered the wagon along a ridge overlooking a lush valley with a creek snaking through it. Beautiful land, Clara remarked. That's your father's property, Vincent said quietly. Clara turned to him in shock. How could you possibly know that? Vincent's eyes remained on the horizon. Because I knew your father, Miss Reynolds. James was a good man, and his death was no accident. The revelation left Clara breathless. Who are you really, Mr. Archer? Your father saved my life once in Kansas City. I was little more than a boy caught stealing food. Instead of having me arrested, he gave me work, taught me to read, treated me like a son. Vincent's voice grew tight with emotion. When I heard how he died, I knew something wasn't right. I've spent 3 years tracking down the truth. And it led you here, to Blackston, Vincent nodded grimly. The Blackston brothers were operating in Kansas City before they came here. Land schemes, fraud, intimidation. Your father was building a case against them with the federal marshals. He was killed before he could testify. Clara felt dizzy with this new information. My father's death was ruled an accident, a fall from his horse. A convenient accident, Vincent said darkly, just like your uncle's sudden illness. They rode in silence for a while, Clara processing this devastating information. Finally, she asked, "What do you intend to do?" "Finish what your father started, but I need proof, documents, anything that might connect the Blackstons to your father's death." Clara thought of the papers in her satchel. "I have my father's documents. Perhaps there's something there we've missed." That evening, after returning to town, they pored over James Reynolds' papers in the small room above the store. Patterson kept watch downstairs, warning them if any of Blackston's men appeared. "Here," Clara said suddenly, pointing to a small notation in her father's journal. "He mentions a meeting with E.B. just days before his death, and something about proof in the lining." Vincent looked up sharply. "The lining of what?" Clara's eyes widened as realization struck. She rushed to her travel case and pulled out her father's old leather satchel, the one she'd been carrying since leaving Kansas City. Her fingers found a small separation in the inner lining, and carefully, she extracted a folded document that had been hidden inside. It was a contract with Edwin Blackston's signature, detailing a fraudulent land scheme that had resulted in the deaths of 3 farmers in Kansas. Names, dates, amounts paid to hired guns her father had obtained damning evidence. "This is it," Vincent breathed. "This could put them away for good." "We need to get this to the federal marshal," Clara said. "The nearest marshal's office is in Helena, 2 days' ride from here," Vincent replied. "And once Blackston realizes what we have." The bell downstairs rang frantically, Patterson's warning signal. Vincent moved to the window and cursed under his breath. Blackston and 6 men heading this way, they looked determined. Clara quickly tucked the document into her bodice. "There's a back staircase. We can." The sound of boots on the stairs cut her off. They'd been surrounded. "Miss Reynolds," Edwin Blackston's voice called through the door. "I believe it's time we concluded our business." Vincent drew his gun, positioning himself between Clara and the door. "Get behind me," he whispered. The door splintered open. 2 of Blackston's men rushed in, only to be met with Vincent's fists. He fought with controlled fury, dropping both men, but more pushed in behind them. Clara grabbed a lantern, swinging it at another attacker, but in the chaos, strong hands seized her from behind. "Got her, boss," shouted one of Blackston's men, dragging Clara backward by her hair. Clara screamed in pain as she was yanked through the doorway. Vincent lunged toward her but was struck from behind, crumpling to the floor as Blackston himself stepped into the room. "Bring her downstairs," Blackston ordered. "And finish him." Clara fought wildly as she was dragged down the stairs by her hair, pain searing her scalp. Through her tears, she saw Patterson lying motionless by the counter, blood pooling beneath him. Outside, more of Blackston's men waited with horses. "You won't get away with this," she spat at Blackston as they emerged onto the street. "People will know what happened here." Blackston smiled coldly. "What happened here? A drifter tried to rob the store. Poor Patterson was killed in the struggle. You, overcome with grief and fear, agreed to come under my protection. By next week we'll be married, and your father's land will finally be mine legally and properly." Clara's blood ran cold at his words. "I'll never marry you. You won't have much choice, my dear, where we're going." Blackston nodded to his men. "Get her on a horse. We're heading to the north property." Clara was roughly hoisted onto a horse, her wrists bound to the saddle horn. As they prepared to ride out, a commotion from inside the store caught everyone's attention. Gunshots, the sound of breaking glass, then silence. One of Blackston's men emerged, looking shaken. "Jenkins and Taylor are down, no sign of the drifter." Blackston's face hardened. "He can't have gone far. Half of you spread out and find him, the rest come with me." He grabbed the reins of Clara's horse. "Let's move." They rode hard out of town, Clara desperately trying to maintain her balance with her hands bound. Her scalp burned where they'd dragged her, and tears of pain and rage streamed down her face. But beneath her fear was a core of steel determination. Vincent was alive, and from what she'd seen of him, he wouldn't abandon her to Blackston. The storm that had been threatening all day finally broke as they rode into the foothills. Rain lashed down in sheets, soaking them to the skin. Thunder crashed overhead, and lightning illuminated the rugged landscape in brief, blinding flashes. The weather worked in Clara's favor, making it difficult for Blackston's men to maintain formation or watch for pursuit. After nearly an hour of hard riding, they reached a remote cabin nestled against a rocky hillside. 2 guards were already posted there, surprised by their boss's sudden arrival with a bound woman. "Get a fire going," Blackston ordered, pulling Clara from the horse and shoving her toward the cabin door. "And keep your eyes open. We might have company." Inside, Clara was pushed into a chair while Blackston poured himself a generous glass of whiskey. Only 3 of his men had accompanied them to the cabin, the others were still searching for Vincent. "Now," Blackston said, settling across from her, "we can discuss things like civilized people. Where is the document your father stole from me?" Clara lifted her chin. "I don't know what you're talking about." Blackston's hand lashed out, striking her across the face. "Don't play games with me. James Reynolds took something that belonged to me before his unfortunate accident. I know he would have entrusted it to his daughter." Clara tasted blood where her lip had split. "Even if I had such a document, what makes you think I'd give it to you? Because, my dear, your life depends on it." Blackston leaned closer, his breath hot on her face. "And not just yours, that old man Patterson. He's probably breathing his last right now. And your cowboy friend, he'll be dead before dawn, unless you cooperate." Clara's mind raced. The document was still hidden in her bodice, but giving it to Blackston meant losing their only proof of his crimes. Yet if she didn't stall for time, he might kill her immediately. "It's hidden," she admitted finally. "Not here in town. I can take you to it." Blackston studied her face, trying to detect a lie. "We'll wait until morning. The storm's too heavy now." He gestured to one of his men. "Tie her to the bed. Make sure she can't escape." As Clara was dragged toward a small adjoining room with a metal-framed bed, the cabin was suddenly plunged into darkness. Someone had extinguished the lanterns from outside. "What the?" Blackston began, reaching for his gun. The front door burst open, kicked in with tremendous force. Lightning flashed, illuminating Vincent Archer's figure in the doorway, water streaming from his hat and coat, a rifle in his hands. "Get down," he shouted to Clara. She dropped to the floor as Vincent fired, his shot catching the man nearest Blackston. The cabin erupted in chaos, muzzle flashes in the darkness, the thunder of gunfire mixing with actual thunder outside. Clara rolled under the bed as bullets splintered the wood around her. She couldn't see what was happening, but she could hear men shouting, furniture overturning, the sickening sound of fists connecting with flesh. Then, abruptly, silence fell. Only the sound of the rain and someone's labored breathing remained. "Clara," Vincent's voice, strained but alive. She crawled out from under the bed. "I'm here." A match struck, and Vincent lit a lantern. The cabin's main room was a scene of carnage. Two of Blackston's men lay still on the floor. The third was slumped against a wall, clutching a wounded shoulder. But Blackston himself was nowhere to be seen. "He ran out the back," the wounded man gasped. "During the fighting." Vincent quickly untied Clara's wrists. "Are you hurt?" "Just bruised," she assured him, though her split lip and scalp throbbed painfully. "How did you find us?" "Followed your trail, not hard in the mud even with the rain." Vincent checked his ammunition. "We need to move. The other men will be heading this way when they hear the shooting." "Blackston's out there," Clara reminded him. "Good, I'm counting on it." Vincent's eyes were cold with purpose. "Stay here, barricade the door after I leave." "I'm coming with you," Clara insisted. "I'm not staying here alone." Vincent looked like he wanted to argue but nodded curtly. "Stay close. Do exactly as I say." They slipped out into the storm, the rain now a blessing that muffled their footsteps and limited visibility for anyone watching. Vincent moved with the silent grace of a predator, guiding Clara around the side of the cabin toward a stand of pine trees. They had just reached the tree line when a shot rang out, the bullet thudding into the trunk inches from Clara's head. "Run." Vincent pushed her deeper into the trees as he turned, firing back toward the source of the shot. Clara ran, branches whipping her face, her sodden skirts hampering her movement. Behind her, she heard more gunfire, then Vincent's footsteps as he caught up to her. "This way," he gasped, taking her hand. "There's a ravine ahead where we can take cover." They half slid down a muddy embankment into a narrow gully where a stream, swollen with rainwater, rushed past. The high banks on either side offered some protection, and the roar of the water would mask any noise they made. "Blackston's alone, but he knows these hills," Vincent said, checking his gun again. "And he's desperate now. That makes him dangerous." Clara reached into her bodice and withdrew the document, now damp but still legible. "This is what he wants, what my father died for." Vincent's eyes widened slightly at the sight of the paper. "Keep it safe. It's our only chance of bringing him to justice properly." "If we survive that long," Clara said grimly. Vincent's hand found hers in the darkness, squeezing gently. "We'll survive. I promised your father I'd protect his daughter, and I aim to keep that promise." The unexpected tenderness in his voice made Clara's heart skip. In the few days she'd known him, Vincent Archer had revealed himself to be far more than the drifter he pretended to be. He was a man of honor, of quiet strength, and in this moment of danger, she realized she trusted him completely. A noise from above made them both freeze. Someone was moving along the edge of the ravine, searching. "There's a bend ahead," Vincent whispered. "If we can get around it, there's a chance to double back toward town." They crept forward, staying low, using the sound of the rushing water to cover their movements. As they rounded the bend, Clara slipped on the slick stones, nearly falling into the stream. Vincent caught her, pulling her against his chest to steady her. For a heartbeat, they stood pressed together, his arms around her waist, her hands against his chest. "Thank you," she breathed. His eyes held hers for a moment longer than necessary before he nodded and released her. "Careful now. The rocks are treacherous." They continued downstream until Vincent spotted a place where they could climb out of the ravine. The rain had finally begun to slacken, but the ground was still dangerously slippery as they clawed their way up the embankment. At the top, Vincent paused, surveying their surroundings. "The town's about 3 miles that way," he said, pointing southeast. "If we can," a shot cracked through the air. Vincent staggered, clutching his side. "Vincent," Clara cried, reaching for him. "Get down," he gritted out, pushing her back toward the ravine edge as he drew his gun. But it was too late. Edwin Blackston emerged from the trees, his rifle aimed steadily at them. His normally immaculate appearance was gone mud-splattered, soaked to the skin with a wild look in his eyes. "Drop it, Archer," he snarled, "or I put the next one through her pretty head." Vincent slowly lowered his gun to the ground, his other hand still pressed against his bleeding side. "Now the document, Miss Reynolds. I know you have it." Clara stood her ground. "If I give it to you, you'll kill us both anyway." Blackston's smile was chilling. "Perhaps, perhaps not. Your cowboy friend here is already dying, but you, my dear, still have value to me. That land won't be mine without a Reynolds signature after all." "She'll never sign," Vincent said, his voice strained with pain. "And killing us won't end your troubles. The federal marshal is already on his way to Silverwater Creek. I sent a telegram before I followed you." Uncertainty flickered across Blackston's face, quickly replaced by rage. "You're lying." "Test that theory," Vincent challenged him. "Kill us, and see how long it takes for the law to track you down. Your brothers are already in custody back in town." Clara glanced at Vincent, realizing he was bluffing to buy time. Blackston's brothers couldn't possibly have been captured so quickly. Blackston hesitated, clearly calculating his options. That moment of indecision was all Vincent needed. With a sudden movement that belied his injured state, Vincent lunged forward, tackling Blackston around the waist. Both men went down hard, struggling for control of the rifle. Clara seized a heavy branch from the ground and rushed forward, but in the chaos of limbs and mud, she couldn't get a clear swing without risking hitting Vincent. The rifle discharged, the bullet going wild. Vincent and Blackston rolled dangerously close to the ravine edge, still fighting for dominance. Despite his wound, Vincent managed to pin Blackston beneath him, landing several powerful blows to the man's face. But Blackston fought with the desperation of a cornered animal. He bucked upward, throwing Vincent off balance. In a terrible moment that seemed to unfold in slow motion, Vincent slipped over the edge of the ravine, managing to grab hold of an exposed root at the last second. Blackston staggered to his feet, blood streaming from his nose. He picked up the rifle, aiming it at Vincent's straining fingers. "No," Clara screamed, swinging the branch with all her might. The heavy wood connected with Blackston's head with a sickening crack. He crumpled instantly, the rifle falling from his hands and clattering down into the ravine. Clara rushed to the edge where Vincent hung precariously, his face white with pain and exertion. "Give me your hand," she urged, lying flat on her stomach and reaching down. With a tremendous effort, Vincent grasped her outstretched hand. Clara pulled with every ounce of strength she possessed, crying out with the strain. Slowly, agonizingly, Vincent managed to gain enough purchase to haul himself up over the edge, collapsing beside her on solid ground. They lay there for several moments, gasping for breath. The rain had stopped entirely now, and weak sunlight was beginning to break through the clouds. "Is he dead?" Vincent asked finally, nodding toward Blackston's motionless form. Clara crawled over to check. "No, but he's out cold. We need to bind him before he wakes." Using strips torn from her petticoat, they secured Blackston's hands and feet. Vincent's wound, though painful, proved to be a deep graze rather than a penetrating bullet hole. "We need to get back to town," Vincent said as Clara bandaged his side with more strips of petticoat. "Can you walk?" Clara nodded. "Can you?" A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "With your help, I believe I can manage." They fashioned a crude travois to drag the unconscious Blackston and began the long, arduous journey back to Silverwater Creek. The going was slow, with frequent stops to rest Vincent's injured side and ensure their prisoner remained secure. As they walked, Clara told Vincent everything Blackston had revealed about her father and uncle, filling in the pieces of the puzzle they'd been trying to solve. "He admitted to killing them both," she concluded. "Not directly, but as good as, we have enough to see him hang even without the document." "The document ensures his brothers go down with him," Vincent replied. "Your father died trying to expose their entire operation. We owe it to him to finish what he started." The sun was setting by the time they reached the outskirts of town. To their surprise, There was unusual activity on the main street, a group of mounted men wearing badges. Townspeople gathered in clusters, talking animatedly. "Federal marshals," Vincent breathed. I wasn't bluffing after all. As they approached, dragging their prisoner behind them, the crowd noticed them and fell silent. Then someone shouted, "It's Miss Reynolds, and she's got Blackston." The marshals rode forward, taking in the bedraggled trio with evident surprise. "I'm Deputy Marshal Williams," said the lead rider. "We received information about criminal activity involving the Blackston brothers. Appears you folks have saved us some trouble." Clara stepped forward, the document clutched in her hand. "My name is Clara Reynolds. My father was James Reynolds of Kansas City. This man, Edwin Blackston, is responsible for his murder and that of my uncle, Richard Reynolds. I have proof of his crimes right here." As Blackston was taken into custody, Clara learned that Patterson had survived the attack, though badly injured. And true to Vincent's bluff, Blackston's brothers had indeed been arrested, caught trying to flee town when news of the gunfight at the store spread. In the days that followed, Clara found herself the center of attention in Silverwater Creek. The full story of the Blackston's crimes emerged, revealing a pattern of fraud, intimidation, and murder stretching back years. Property stolen from legitimate owners, including Clara's uncle, was restored to its rightful claimants. Clara's own inheritance, the land her father had purchased, was confirmed by the land office, giving her a substantial holding along the creek that bore the town's name. Vincent remained by her side throughout, his wound healing slowly. Their shared ordeal had forged a bond between them that grew stronger with each passing day. They spent long hours talking, learning each other's histories, dreams, and fears. Clara discovered that Vincent had been a Texas Ranger before dedicating himself to finding her father's killers, and that beneath his quiet exterior lay a man of profound integrity and surprising tenderness. One evening, as they sat on the porch of what had been her uncle's house, now restored to Clara, Vincent finally spoke of the future. "The marshals have offered me a position," he said, "based in Helena." Clara's heart sank. Helena was nearly 100 miles away. "That's a fine opportunity," she managed to say. Vincent studied her face in the fading light. "I'm considering declining." "Why would you do that?" Clara asked, trying to keep her voice casual. "I've been thinking I might prefer ranching," he replied, his eyes never leaving hers. "This country suits me, and I've grown rather attached to certain aspects of Silverwater Creek." Clara's pulse quickened. Such as a certain store owner with chestnut hair and more courage than any person I've ever known." He reached over, taking her hand in his. His touch, once so foreign, now felt like the most natural thing in the world. "Clara, I came here seeking justice for your father. I never expected to find something far more precious." Vincent's voice was low, intimate in the gathering dusk. "I've lost my heart to you completely. If you could see your way to considering a future together." Clara turned her hand in his, lacing their fingers together. "I believe I could see my way quite clearly to such a future, Mr. Archer." The kiss they shared as the first stars appeared above them was gentle, a promise of deeper passion to come. Vincent's arms encircled her, strong and sure, and Clara knew with absolute certainty that she had found her home. They were married that autumn as golden leaves drifted across the land that was now their shared legacy. Patterson, recovered from his wounds, gave the bride away. The ceremony was small, attended by townspeople who had come to respect the couple who had freed them from the Blackston's shadow. Together, Clara and Vincent built a ranch that prospered under their combined determination and vision. Vincent's knowledge of horses and Clara's head for business proved a formidable combination. They named it Phoenix Ranch, a symbol of rebirth from the ashes of tragedy. Their first child, a daughter they named Josephine after Clara's mother, arrived the following year, bringing a joy neither had dared imagine possible after so much loss. A son, James, followed 2 years later, ensuring that the Reynolds name would continue alongside Archer. On quiet evenings, when the children were asleep, and the vast Montana sky blazed with stars, Clara and Vincent would sit together on their porch, marveling at the path that had brought them together. A path that began in violence and fear, with Clara being dragged by her hair into what should have been her doom, but which ended in a love so profound, it seemed to have been written in the stars themselves. "Do you ever think about how different things might have been if you hadn't come to Silverwater Creek?" Clara asked one such evening, nestled against Vincent's chest. "Every day," he replied, pressing a kiss to her hair. "But I don't believe we were ever meant for different paths." "Some things are fated, Clara, like a storm that's been gathering on the horizon long before you see the first clouds." Clara smiled, remembering the storm that had raged the night Vincent had come for her, fighting through darkness and danger like a force of nature himself. "You came like a storm," she murmured, "and left silence behind." "Not silence," Vincent corrected gently. "Peace, there's a difference." Clara lifted her face to his, seeing in his eyes the same love that filled her own heart. "Yes," she agreed as his lips met hers, "there most certainly is." In the years that followed, their love only deepened. Their ranch flourished, becoming one of the most successful in the territory. 3 more children joined their family: twin girls, Sarah and Emma, and another son, Richard, named for Clara's uncle. Their home became known for its warmth and hospitality, a gathering place for friends and travelers alike. Vincent eventually did accept a position with the marshals, but as a special deputy who could remain based at the ranch, called upon only for specific cases that required his unique skills. Clara managed the ranch operations during his occasional absences, proving herself every bit as capable as any man in the territory. Their children grew strong and confident, raised with stories of their grandfather's courage and their parents' determination to seek justice. They learned to ride almost before they could walk, and each inherited some combination of Vincent's quiet strength and Clara's fierce spirit. As Montana transitioned from territory to statehood in 1889, Clara and Vincent found themselves respected leaders in their community. Vincent was invited to serve on the first state judicial committee, while Clara established a foundation to support education for young women, ensuring that future generations would have opportunities she had nearly been denied. On their 20th anniversary, surrounded by their children and grandchildren, Vincent presented Clara with a journal bound in soft leather. "What's this?" she asked, running her fingers over the cover. "Our story," he replied. "So that our grandchildren's grandchildren will know how it all began. How a brave woman faced down evil, and how a man who thought his heart was dead to feeling found it miraculously restored." Clara opened the journal, tears filling her eyes as she read Vincent's neat handwriting on the first page. They dragged her by her hair, but the cowboy came like a storm and left silence behind. What followed was not silence at all, but a symphony of love that continues to play, note by perfect note, through all the days of our lives. That night, lying in Vincent's arms in the bedroom of the home they had built together, Clara whispered, "Do you ever regret it, any of it?" Vincent's arms tightened around her. "Not a single moment. Every step, every hardship, every pain led me to you. How could I regret the path that brought me home?" Clara pressed her face against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "I love you, Vincent Archer." "And I love you, Clara Archer, until the stars fall from the sky." Outside their window, the Montana night spread vast and glittering above the land they had tamed together. The creek that had given the town its name continued its eternal journey, much as their love flowed, constant and true, through all the seasons of their lives. The storm had long since passed, leaving behind not silence, but the rich, full symphony of a love that had been forged in fire and would endure for all their days.